Hello everybody. Welcome to Healthy Families. So, before we get talking about what we need to talk about today, I'm going to tell you a silly little story about goldfish in my family. I mean, this is a family workshop. So what do goldfish have to do with your health? Well, my parents a couple of years back developed a very bad case of empty nest syndrome. And what you need to know about my parents is my dad is an obsessive clean freak, and my mother was literally put on this earth to make people eat, right? So these regular goldfish turn into these gigantic, like tuna fish sized goldfish. At some point my parents have to move down to Virginia. My dad takes me aside and says, I want you to have the goldfish. You know, I mean, I am the responsible son of me and my brother. So, unbeknownst to me, goldfish are really not fish. They're actually intestines with fins. They are disgusting. They produce more fecal matter, I think, per pound than anything else on this planet. Now, I do not have the same gifts for cleanliness and wanting to feed things, so let's just say that these goldfish ideal environment went south really, really quick. So long story short, there was once 6 goldfish, soon turned into be 3 goldfish. And by this time, my parents have come up to, visit for Christmas, and they go to look at the fish, and oh my God, where's Finny? Finny's dead, Dad. Finny died. So, needless to say, Dad takes back those fish. All right? And I don't know the normal lifespan of fish, but these fish lived like another 2 years, all because clean environment and good food. So, you know what? We're like fish in a fishbowl. We're basically domesticated animals. We're only about 5% of the world's population, but you know what? We consume about 60% of the world's drugs. You know what? We also spend the most money on health care, and you know what? We take the most drugs. Probably should be the healthiest, right? World Health Organization, they rank us number 37 as far as healthy countries. I will give anyone $5 if they can think of 36 other countries in the next couple of minutes, right? Hard to do. We literally live in a toxic environment. Research shows that 60% of us will die from some form of chronic disease, and that's estimated to rise an additional 17% over the next 10 years. So everyone, look to your neighbor on your right. Say hello. Look to your neighbor on the left. Say hello. The secret is this. If they look better than you, that may be you. So this is something that's going to affect all of us or someone that we care about. So this is what we need to know. We're all pretty much cavemen, cavewomen. We're only 0.02% genetically different. And what we are finding is that our lifestyle is completely, and I mean completely, incongruent with the genes that we've developed over these past 40,000 years. The good news is, the one thing that we do have is something called the stress response. Now raise your hand if you've heard of the fight or flight response, stress response. Same exact thing. And what the stress response is you're sitting by your fire one day, and then all of a sudden the woolly mammoth jumps out of the woods and it wants to make you lunch. Well, you got to get out of there like now. So what the body does is it sets off a series of events, stimulates your adrenal glands, and then that basically releases something called cortisol and adrenaline, which we're going to talk a lot about. And what that does is in that moment, it turns up whatever processes you need for immediate survival and turns down processes that you don't need for immediate survival. So, woolly mammoths trying to make me lunch? Increased heart rate, blood pressure is a pretty good thing because I got to get that blood to my muscles so I can run. And if I were to get a cut, I'm definitely going to want increased clotting factors and increased blood lipids. If I'm running from a woolly mammoth, I'm going to have increased feelings of stress. Well, that's good because I want to remember where I almost got killed. My immune system is going to go through the floor because, quite frankly, my body doesn't care about fighting a virus or a cold when I'm running for my life. So here's the thing. These things in a survival situation, 100% appropriate and actually very, very healthy. But what we need to understand is if this becomes something that we do every single day, increased heart rate and blood pressure, that looks a lot like heart disease, doesn't it? increased cholesterol, clotting factors, and lipids, that's diabetes. Decreased serotonin and short-term memory, that's ADHD. Decreased cellular immunity, that's your immune system not working properly. Decreased bone formation, that's osteoporosis. So those 60% of those chronic diseases that are 100% preventable through lifestyle, here they are right here. Does everyone see that? So here's the thing that you really need to understand is your body will use the same generic stress response no matter what the cause is. And there's going to be three main triggers that are going to set off the stress response for you and for your kids. So chemical stresses, those are things that every single one of us here has experienced, right? And we're going to talk about in length the chemical stressors that are literally causing our youngest generation to be one of our most unhealthy. Some researchers are estimating that the current generation now is going to be the first generation in the history of the planet to die before their parents. In other words, have a shorter lifespan. Where lifespan's been going up, we're thinking, oh, this is where it's going to start going down. Every single one of us has chemical stresses. Physical stressors. For many of us, that starts during the delivery process. I just had a niece that was born after a 50-hour labor and a vacuum or a forceps extraction. You know, so the trauma to her spine and her nervous system started day one. And then we've all seen kids learn how to walk. We've all seen kids fall and tumble downstairs. And then it's the sports injuries. And then we get older, we trade those physical traumas in for occupational stresses. In other words, every single one of us throughout the course of our lifetime experiences physical traumas, physical stresses, setting off that immune response or that stress response. Emotional stresses. Are you married? She's not here. I had to get that joke in. So, emotional stresses. Your body's going to respond as if it's running for its life, whether you're literally running for your life, whether you've ingested some sort of toxin, or here, if you're emotionally stressed, same stress response. We hear stress is killing us. It literally is. So, when we think of kids, we don't think kids are stressed out, are they? That's just not something that we accept. But what we find is that kids are basically sponges, aren't they? You're right? And my wife, we call her the baby whisperer. If you've all met my wife, she's very, very calm and very, very collected, and babies just kind of feed off of her energy. They'll be crying, and then, oh, baby whisperer, and then, you know? In other words, these kids feed off of your energy. So one thing that I guess you can teach your kids is that thoughts are really things. So I want you to Google this person, and this is in your notes, Dr. Emoto. And what this person did, he wrote this book, Hidden Messages in Water, and he wanted to find out that literally thoughts, really, and feelings affect your physical reality. So what he did was pretty interesting. He would direct a focused intention on a water sample. I love you, water bottle, or I hate you, water bottle, and he would freeze the water sample and look under a high-powered microscope. Right? And this is what they found. When they played the water sample's Mozart Symphony, froze it, that's what the crystalline structure of the water molecule looked like. When they played it heavy metal music, that's what it looked like. I know, we've entered the realm of the fruity, but it's pretty neat. You Make Me Sick, it looked like that. And Love and Gratitude. So, definitely Google that. It's one of those things that you'll be researching, and you really are seeing what you're seeing. Now here's the thing: we're 75% water, are we not? So the thoughts that we really tell ourselves, sometimes those are the worst things. We would never say those things to other people. So I guess one of the things you can do is just be conscious of telling your kids, hey, be careful of those thoughts. They are things. We think of a thought as this, but it actually is that. So when we talk about how do we manage our emotional stresses, when we dump that cortisol, that adrenaline, we really need sleep. All right? Sleep is the time where that adrenaline, that cortisol is recycled and basically taken out of our bodies. Now, many people that have a hard time sleeping is because all day their cortisol is pumping, pumping, pumping. I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. And by the time they lay to bed, they have cortisol just running through their veins, and they have a hard time sleeping. Also, that's the time when we're sleeping that our bodies release something called growth hormone. Now, growth hormone, we're going to talk a little bit more in a bit, but growth hormone is what our bodies need for repair and regeneration. So if you can't sleep, you can't heal. Chemical stressors, and this is where we're going to spend most of our time tonight. So chemical stressors is particularly sugar. So sugar in America, 2/3 of Americans right now are obese or overweight. 56% of us are overweight, 27% of us are clinically obese. Sugar is the number one source of calories in the USA. Number one source. You know, it wasn't always like this. In the 1800s, the average American consumed only about 18 pounds of sugar a year. Now, that in itself, 18 pounds of sugar is a lot. That seems a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, in the 1900s, that jumped to 90 pounds of sugar a year. And just in 100 years, you know what? It's gone up tenfold. The average American consumes 180 pounds of sugar a year. That's a skinny version of me, made out of sugar, a year. That's a lot of sugar. Soda. Soda is going to be the number one source of sugar here in the U.S. of A. 25% of all drinks consumed in the U.S. are soda. All non-diet soft drinks contain about 8 to 10 teaspoons of sugar. What is 8 to 10 teaspoons of sugar? That's a lot of sugar. Have you had a soda? Who's had a soda today? Anyone? No one's going to admit it. But would you put this in water and would you drink it? Some of us may. So, 8 to 10 teaspoons of sugar. So, just one soda is about 100% of our daily allotment of sugar. So, again, what does that look like? 10 teaspoons of sugar. Right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So, it comes to our kids. We got sodas in the schools. This study done by the British, in Britain, found there was a 2-year study, and they looked at just 12-year-olds, and they found that for every soda these 12-year-olds consume, the risk of their obesity jumped 60%. Kid has 2 sodas a day, 120% more likely to become obese. So it was an exponential type of relationship. Okay, so when we talk about sugar, what does that mean? All right, when I say sugar is really something we call sucrose. And what sucrose is actually, it's a combination of, it's called it's actually 2 sugars that are attached by a bond. And one of these sugars is glucose, which is what our body's designed to run on, which is good. And one molecule is fructose, which our body has a harder time to manage. Okay? And fructose you may know as fruit sugar. We're going to talk a lot about fructose as we go, and I want to be very clear. When we're talking about fructose, we're talking about in the form of high fructose corn syrup. Okay? We're not talking about the fructose that we find in fruit. All right? If you took someone that eats lots of fruit and has a great diet, they'd have about less than 75 grams of fructose. All right? We're talking about the sodas and things of that nature. We're talking more like well over 150 grams of fructose. So fructose in itself isn't bad. It's just that we have so much of it. All right. So regular sugar is this. All right. Now, anyone ever hear of xylitol? So I always hear, is xylitol healthy? Well, xylitol is not. It's a sugar alcohol. It's not a sugar and it's not an alcohol, and it's less calories because of the alcohol. It's incompletely absorbed by our intestines. So that's why it's less calories. Now, what happens if our body doesn't use something? It's got to store it, right? And what we're finding is that where it gets stored is in your fat cells. And if your fat cell has a job because it's storing toxin, do you think you're going to lose that fat cell? Doesn't matter how hard you exercise? Well, we have a lot of people that work really, really hard and they're not losing any weight, and well, it's because their fat cells are doing a job. They're full of junk. When it comes to Splenda, we call that sucralose, okay? Now, what that is just a chlorinated form of sugar. In other words, it's sugar, but extra things sticking out. just like sugar alcohols, xylitol are sugar, but extra pieces and parts. And the problem with those things is once your body gets that, it says, it looks in its memory banks, it looks in its Rolodex, and says, I don't know who that is. I don't know what to do with that. So that's why it gets absorbed. Actually, there's only 6 human studies ever done on Splenda. Only 2 of them were done before the FDA said, it's good. There was 36 people in that sample. Only 23 of them made it through. The other ones left because of adverse reactions. So, is Splenda safe? Because the commercial says it's safe. I don't know, we can make our own guess. They found that when they finally did get around to do an excretion study, they found that at least 14% of the Splenda is never excreted. And in some people, they found none of it was excreted. So I would avoid Splenda like the plague, personally. Stevia. Stevia is a natural, basically, herb. It comes from the stevia plant found in South America. This is like the new and latest thing, and you know what? There's not a lot of research on it, but from all accounts, it looks okay for now. Yeah.
My mom went to that instead of the Splenda.
Yeah. Give it another 5 years, I'm sure they'll find something wrong with it. This is why we're here. High fructose corn syrup. Okay? High fructose corn syrup is like sucrose, but back in the 70s, the beverage companies and the food companies found out that, hey, it's a lot cheaper to make sugar from corn than it is from, cane sugar. And basically, high fructose corn syrup, the big deal is this bond that exists in nature doesn't exist. So in other words, when you start to tamper with things, you don't make it like Mom used to. You make it like, pretty close, but not that close. So why high fructose corn syrup is absolutely destructive to the human body is, your body gets high fructose corn syrup, there's no bond, so the body basically explodes. And then because of that, it sets off this whole metabolic cascade. So high fructose corn syrup is horrible. I thought I was going to be a great husband last night, and I went home, I said, I am going to rid our fridge of high fructose corn syrup. And like half our refrigerator later, my wife wasn't all that happy with me. It kind of backfired. But, I mean, it is in everything. Just read some labels. If it's the first top 5 ingredients, there's a lot of sugar in there.
Does that contribute to hunger pains if you go off of it?
Ooh, we're going to get there. And that answer your question? Big time. So, we've got to talk a little bit about what does sugar do to you when your body eats it. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Basically, your body, you eat some food, right? And your body digests it. It goes into the intestines. Then your body takes it from the intestine, puts it in your bloodstream, right? So after that, your blood sugar increases. That's like the dinner bell going off, right? So you got all this energy out in the blood. You want that energy in the muscle, right? So your pancreas releases insulin, and that pushes all that blood sugar to go into the cell, all right? If we had to graph that, what that would look like is something like this. Blood sugar goes up, pancreas says, hey, I need that energy in my cells. Blood sugar goes down. That's good. Now what we're going to talk about now is something called high glycemic carbohydrates. These are the things that high fructose corn syrup, the processed carbs. If we were to chart what that graph would look like, what happens is the blood sugar, instead of going up gradually, spikes. Now remember, what does your body do whenever it has a stressful response, whether it be physical, emotional, or chemical? What's it going to do? Stress response, right? Way back to that first slide, increased heart rate, blood pressure. And what it does specifically here is it stimulates the pancreas freaks out, and instead of releasing a controlled amount of insulin, it goes, whoa, whoa! And in that process, stimulates the adrenals, so the blood sugar goes, boom! Now, to answer your question, Joe, that's one of, and there's a couple of things, that's one of the things that makes you hungry. We've all been at Thanksgiving, right? We eat those high glycemic carbs, we have a great old time, we get big and fat and happy, and then about half, or Chinese food is even a better example of this. Like, I'm full! And then you burp, and then you're starving again. You go from 0 to hungry in like 2 seconds. That is basically what's going on there. So, I want you all to be smarter consumers. So what you need to do is a little bit of homework and look up something called the glycemic index. And the glycemic index is the measure of how fast the blood sugar goes up, how fast the blood sugar goes down. You want lower glycemic carbohydrates, under 55. High glycemic carbohydrates are above 70. So what you need to do is, not all vegetables and not all foods are created equal. You just Google glycemic index, you'll have more information than you know what to do with, and that will say, hey, whoa, I like this, but I don't like that, but ooh, it helps you make better choices. So this is a really good tool that everyone needs to learn how to use. So again, high glycemic carbohydrates result in cortisol and adrenaline, and that's your stress response. That's the stress response that's killing us. So, talk about like 7 different things that fructose will do. Fructose and obesity. Okay, so Joe, to answer your question again, the second thing that causes us to basically eat more and feel hungry is when our body, there's a hormone, let me back up, a hormone called leptin. Okay, and leptin is released from our fat cells, and it tells our nervous system, I'm done eating, I'm full, thank you very much. If we eat glucose, that will stimulate leptin. When we have fructose, it has absolutely no effect on the hormone that says, you're full now. So what do you think? Do you think that would lead to overeating? Right? You just keep on eating and eating and eating and eating. So right out of the Clinical Journal of Endocrinology. So that's why increased fructose, increased weight gain. Goes on. So this basically looked at a study, and there's 2 groups. One was on fructose diet, one was on glucose. All right? And what they found is the subjects given a high fructose diet produced brand new fat cells, not on their abdomen, but around their viscera, around their organs. That's the worst of the worst fat, is organ fat. What absolutely blows my mind is the trial period was only 10 weeks. That's a summer, right? Could even be a semester, right? So that's the freshman 15 right there. Gets worse. All right. Fructose is almost directly turned into fat. All right? So if you eat 100 calories of glucose, less than 1 calorie is going to be stored as fat. If you eat the same amount of fructose, 40 calories are stored as fat. Because fructose is metabolized almost, very similarly to as alcohol, right? So we all know that alcohol will, turn you fat. Well, so does fructose. It does it in the same way. Let's talk about type 2 diabetes. The number of Americans with diabetes has more than tripled since just 1980. All right? And when did we start producing fructose? 1970. 2, actually. But it didn't take long, did it? And Harvard School of Public Health, an 8-year study of 91,000 adult females, not a small sample size, they found that those who drank just 1 soda a day, just 1 soda. In talking about this workshop with my patients, I said, hey, you drink soda? Oh, 1 a day. I say you're only 85% more likely to get diabetes. Congratulations. Fructose and heart disease. Okay, we already talked. Fructose is directly converted to fat, but specifically free fatty acids, VLDLs, very low density lipoproteins. Those are the cholesterols that just stick to the inside of your blood vessels, and triglycerides. If you have a cholesterol issue, probably your doctor is most concerned about your triglycerides if they're high. Am I right? So that's a big deal. Increased fructose consumption results in increased uric acid. Okay, so uric acid is basically related to things like gout. And we're now finding that uric acid, just like C-reactive protein, are markers of what we call chronic inflammation. In other words, a lot of the things that we do in a workshop that's going to be coming up is things that set us into a chronic low level of inflammation all the time. All right? So basically what happens is when cells die, they produce something called purines. And then those purines eventually lead to the formation of uric acid. So what uric acid does is it causes the blood vessels to constrict. And when blood vessels constrict and close, what happens to the blood pressure? It goes way up. Now, in addition to that, and I mean that's just one mechanism, but at the same time another mechanism basically leads to, again, that low-level chronic inflammation. And we talk about how it's the nicks and the cuts inside the blood vessel lining or the lumen that really causes us to develop those plaques in there. So is this a big deal? It's a huge deal. Immune system. So, I've got to talk a little bit about your immune system. So, everyone here, at least, because I know you're all my patients, you know that vitamin C is what turns on immune cells, right? All right. So think of your immune cells like, I don't know, Little Miss Pac-Man, shall we? Okay? And what happens is Little Miss Pac-Man has a on-off switch right back there. And what happens is vitamin C is going to come along when there's something that needs to be eaten, and it turns the immune cell on. It activates it. But what happens is sugar is identical to vitamin C at the binding spot, so it sits on the on switch. And if you wanted to turn off the light, and my hand was right here, could you do it? No. So basically what this slide shows is basically what happened to the immune system when people were given sugar. So at just an 8-ounce soft drink, say 6 teaspoons of sugar, they decreased their immune system by about 25%. Now, if we had the normal, say, lunch, where I said, hey, I had about, 12 teaspoons or a frosted brownie, right? Then I've cut my immune system 60%. So when we talk about someone that has uncontrolled diabetes, they only have an 8% efficient immune system. So, yeah. That's a big deal. So a lot of times when you come in, you got a sniffy, you're cold, you're not feeling good, the first thing I'll say to you is, hey, 1, increase your water, but 2, no sugar. I mean no sugar, because it's the sugar that's basically holding on to Miss Pac-Man saying, you can't do your job. Right? It's not allowing vitamin C to do its job. That make sense to everybody? Yeah? Yeah? Any questions on that? Okay. So we already know that cancer is really basically an immune system problem. There's been a number of studies that have found that high sugar intake is associated with different types of cancers. A 4-year study by the National Institute of Public Health found the sugar intake in cancer patients was nearly doubled when they compare it to non-cancer patients. A study of 21 different nations found that sugar intake was a strong risk factor for developing breast cancer. And this one right here, 38,000 women over 8 years, they found that sugar consumption may lead to developing colon cancer. One of the things that sugar does is, again, it stimulates that stress response, right? And what happens in that stress response is, as you're running for your life, is anyone concerned about digesting their lunch? No. Not at all. So the motility of the bowel just is completely affected, and that's how, well, we know constipation is associated with colon cancer, and that's how we get constipated. Get rid of your sugar. Sugar and chiropractic. So especially when we're first starting our chiropractic care, there's some structural changes that we want to make before we can get to a wellness phase of care. And part of that is my job, but part of that is your job too, because, well, there's homework that needs to be done. Sugar disrupts the balance between calcium, phosphorus, all right? And what that does is it causes our body to draw the calcium from the bones. So anyone concerned about osteoporosis, right? Ladies, we all should be, if I could be a lady for a moment, right? We should all be concerned about osteoporosis. And you know what? You go to the doctor, they say, eat more calcium, eat more calcium, eat more calcium. Well, you know what? In the USA, most people, there's no such thing as a calcium deficiency unless you're in an impoverished area, right? And how do we get our calcium? You get it through dairy, right? Yeah. Well, you know, the pasteurization process in making dairy, it ruins the enzyme your body needs to absorb that calcium. So I always tell my patients, get your calcium like your cows do, green leafy vegetables, right? And so again, this is another workshop for another time, but yeah, if you really are concerned about bone density, you should really, really, really not eat sugar. Again, when we talk about calcium and magnesium, We talk about, especially those of you that have tight muscle cramps and contractions and spasms. It's usually because the balance of calcium magnesium is not what it needs to be. Again, everyone has an abundance of calcium, which contracts the muscle, and that's really all spasm is. Magnesium is harder to hold on to. Sugar and all these things cause our bodies, well, one, not to absorb as much magnesium, and two, to lose it through the feces and through the urine. So I very rarely will talk to you about your, well, at least in this crowd, I'll very rarely talk to you about your calcium, but I'll always talk to you about your magnesium, and that's why. Harder to hold on to. Sugar suppresses your growth hormone. That's needed for the muscle development. So at one point, what we do is we give you exercises, and we need to help retrain the nervous system so it can support the spine better. Well, you need to grow muscle, and if you don't have the growth hormone to do it, it's not going to happen. Also, sugar causes our body to pull out the high tensile strength collagen. That's what gives the tendons, the ligaments, the discs, the skin, all the strength. All right? So, well, ladies and gentlemen, if we're concerned with our complexions, sugar is a big part of this, right? Okay, so let's talk about veggies. So only about 15% of children meet their daily allotment of fruit, and less than 20% of children meet their daily allotment of veggies. And what we've found is that basically where we should be having vegetables, they're now replaced with complex or processed carbohydrates. So we've basically put the worst possible thing we could put in the slot of one of the best possible things we could have. So when you're when you're getting your veggies, this is hard to do, but your goal should be at least 1/3 of all the vegetables you eat should be raw. Some experts would say steam the vegetables because that helps to break down the membranes and you can absorb them. So raw or steamed, quite frankly, I just want you to eat the vegetable. I don't care what you have to do, but raw or steamed would be the best. So, going back to persistent hunger. Sometimes I'm eating great, but I'm hungry all the time. Well, maybe it's because basically persistent hunger is a sign that we're not getting enough nutrients. So a lot of the times we eat food that is nutrient void, and we can have as much food as you want, but if it has no nutrients in it, you're going to be hungry still, because your body wants nutrients. So it's going to say, hey, feed me something. So when storing your vegetables, make sure you're getting all the air out of your the bag. It should be an airtight seal, because your fruits and vegetables do release a gas that causes them to rot and lose further vegetables. You can actually extend the shelf life almost double it if you vacuum seal or really just get the air out of Ziploc bag. That's all you need. Not all fruits and veggies are created equal. We talked about the glycemic index. Some of your favorite veggies, and especially fruits, could potentially be high glycemic. Right? I love dates in ski season. Dates are the perfect ski food. They don't, but they're high glycemic. So the more you learn, the less you can eat. Really, it's kind of unfortunate. It's like, lost another one. No more dates. Okay, organic is best, but you know what? It's expensive to eat organic. So if you check out www.ewg.org, that's the Environmental Working Group. And basically they have something called the Dirty Dozen. And what that does is it tells you what the foods that are most critical to buy organically and least critical. Things like strawberries, they're like sponges for pesticide. So that's on the Dirty Dozen. You definitely want to get that organically. And of course, they're more expensive that way. If they're non-organic, you can soak it in the sink for about 30 minutes with 4 to 8 ounces of distilled vinegar. That will help get some of the pesticides off. Okay. Also, soaking it in water will make it more crispy and crunchy. And who doesn't like that? All right? So, other than that, if you can eat local, Lisa, this is Lisa. Hello, Lisa, everybody.
Hi.
So Lisa does a part of a community farm and was nice enough to bring in, well, you bring in a lot of stuff. But like the other day, or 2 weeks ago, she brought in a pepper. And we were making a stir fry. And we had the regular peppers, and then we cut up Lisa's pepper. And it was like a pepper explosion. You could smell it. It was a night. And, I remember with the other pepper I got at Whole Foods, I'm like, my $5 pepper don't smell like this. But, it was a big difference. So buying local farmers markets, we're going to be starting a cleanse class here in about a month or so. Perfect time of the year. Farmers markets. Good stuff. Veggies. So here you are. You're eating organic vegetables. You're doing all the right stuff. But guess what? Recent study done by the University of Texas, they found out that the average vegetable in today's supermarket is anywhere between 5 to 40% lower in minerals than those that were harvested 50 years ago. Wait, Doc, are you telling me that the food that I'm spending my hard-earned money for is less nutritious than the food that was grown 50 years ago? I'm not telling you that, but the researchers here at the Journal of Horse, they are, So that's disturbing. And why is that happening? Topsoil erosion, fertilizers often interfere with the plant's ability to take up nutrients from the soil. Basically, feeding a big population is big business, right? And it's not like we're eating like we used to eat way back when. I mean, I saw on the news the beginning of the week that in Europe they're thinking about growing meat. Has anyone else heard this story? All right, I'm not even going to talk about it because it's disgusting. And actually, what Fox, my wife loves Fox. What Fox said is the researchers believe that it actually would be more nutritious than the natural meat. Yeah, at this point I was going nuts. Essential fatty acids. This is, I think everyone, and I mean everyone, needs to be on essential fatty acid. Because of all the processed food that is out there, you just are going to get way more omega-6 fatty acids than you should get. There's omega-6s and there's omega-3s, okay? And really what it is you need a good ratio, 1-to-1 ratio of 6 to 3, all right? And not that omega-6s are bad, because there is some things in the body that needs omega-6s, but the fact is most Americans have a 50-to-1 or a 15-to-1 ratio of bad fat to good fat. So we need essential fatty acids because our bodies are always in the process of breaking down and repairing, yes? And when it goes to repair itself, the fat is basically the structure that we build new cells with. Your brain's 60% fat. So when you go to make new structures, if you have junk, say lumber, how healthy is the house going to be? It's going to fall apart, right? You're making your house out of, I don't know, plywood. I don't know. Joe, help me out. What would I not want to make a house out of?
Particle board. Yeah.
Particle board. All right? So, you make your cells out of essential fatty acids. It's like making it out of brick or stone. Physical stresses. All of us have physical stresses, right? But when we talk about kids, the thing about physical stresses is we all know that physical traumas can set off a stress response, right? We talked about that already. But movement is life. And what we find is lack of movement can stimulate that immune response too. In other words, all right, I'm hit off the head with a soccer ball. Stress response. I'm sitting in front of a television, not moving. Stress response. And here's probably the most important thing that I'm going to teach you all night. Our body's natural way of getting out of the stress response is through movement. Period. Right? So it makes sense, right? Woolly mammoth is trying to kill me. How am I going to... I'm going to run. And in that running, what that does is it hits a relay center in my cerebellum in the brain, and it shuts the stress response off at a key relay center. So movement's important. So when, for instance, here we have Alan. Alan's in his late 60s, and he's recorded his cholesterol level since the dawn of time. Right? And I got all of his cholesterol levels, and then he starts chiropractic care. And you know what? His good cholesterol goes up. His low cholesterol goes down. His blood pressure drops. And all these things start to happen. I mean, you can see it right here. I didn't give him a lower your blood pressure, lower your cholesterol adjustment. But what we did is movement of the spine is absolutely critical for overall health. Right? The majority, we talk about that relay center that shuts off the stress response. It gets the majority of its input from the spine. Most of it. So, when we're subluxated, the vertebrae are locked up. They can't move properly. Right? So, in other words, we're starving the brain or starving that relay center of the information that it needs to do its job. So, when Alan's health changed, it wasn't because of anything we did, but all we did was normalize the input into the brain. Brain made better decisions. So when it comes to our kids, hey, they're not moving because they're watching TV or playing video games. When we were kids, we were out riding our bike. I'm 32, I'm still riding my bike. These kids are sitting watching a video game of riding their bike, right? So increased screen time promotes increased caloric intake, not movement. This study found for each hour of television viewing, they were associated with an additional 167 calories. So, I watch 1 hour of television, that kid is consuming another 167. Kid has 2 hours of television, he's close to 400 extra calories. And what this study found out is, well, what kind of food is this? It's the most advertised foods, right? We've all been there. Well, I haven't been there yet. Mommy, 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 I want this. Dad, I want this, right? In other words, the kids watch the television. The kids now know what they want. They influence the parents' buying decision. And here we are. I mean, it's natural, right? Kids spend more time watching television than engaging in any other activity other than sleep. This is out of the journal Pediatrics. So, American Academy of Pediatrics, they recommend no more than 2 hours of television watching per day. So, yeah. So what we're finding is the kids that watch the most television are the kids that eat the less vegetables. They're the kids that watch the most television are the kids that are burning the least amount of calories. So many hours in the day. You're either moving or sitting. Movement's life. Sitting's death. Kids are kids, right? Kids are kids. Kids just want to be kids. They expect, or they need us to kind of help them along the way. But again, kids are going to fall. They're going to wipe out. They're going to crash, right? And most of us showed up in this office in our 30s, right? Or beyond. And many of us show up, I've had this for about a week, a month. You fill in the blank. I had this before and went away and now it's back. So now I guess I have it only, you know? In other words, the injuries that you all have and walked in here with started way back when. Many of them started in the delivery process. And these injuries have compounded and compiled throughout your life. And then here we are at the chiropractor. So, we teach our kids to brush and floss every single day, but we don't do anything, in most cases, to say, hey, take care of your nervous system, because that's running everything else in the body, So here we are. We spent a good amount of time talking about how you can improve your diet, how you can, in other words, it doesn't matter. We can increase your exercise. We can do all these different things to make you healthy, but if the nervous system's not working properly, how effective is all that going to be? So, big thing with the kids is the backpacks. I mean, we've seen them, right? So here's the thing. There should only be about 15% of their body weight in the backpack. Period. I mean, 15 it should be 10, but 15% of their body weight. 100 pounds, only 15 pounds. That's like 2 books. You got to wear it properly. No over the shoulder. No across the torso. You want to have nice padded straps. You want to make sure you have a chest strap and a waist strap. Several compartments are nice. When you want, and because that is going to allow you to pack the pack better. I did a big workshop for REI, and pulled a lot of research from the Natick Labs where I used to work, and they found that the difference between a properly packed pack and an improperly packed pack is like 50% difference in energy expenditure. So really, you want to teach your kids, get all the heavy stuff close to the body and up high. Just like a good baseball pitch, high and close. That's all you got to remember. Most of these kids, they put them out in through here, and then it's down here, and hey! So, again, make sure they're packing their packs. What I want to talk to you about now is just kids and chiropractic. And again, this is not meant to be a commercial for, hey, get your kids under chiropractic care. But the only reason I mention it is because the kids I see under care, their health is fantastic. So, this study, they compared 200 children under chiropractic care and 200 kids not under chiropractic care. The chiropractic group had fewer ear infections, allergies, tonsils, asthma. The health of the children under chiropractic care was superior. Unrelated, this article or this study was done by Ron Perot. He's a big-time cancer researcher, and he found that basically chiropractic patients of all ages had at least a 200% greater immune competence. In other words, your immune system of our chiropractic patients is superior. So, one of the ways that we now evaluate the effectiveness of an adjustment is to measure different agents within the immune system. So 91, neutrophils, monocytes, substance P, all of those things are just, they're agents of the immune system. They're your immune army. And they're found to get higher after adjustments. So many times when our newer patients come in, they say, I'm not going to come in today because I'm sick. And our staff says, that's the best time to get adjusted. You get your butt in here. I'm not worried about your germs. Right? So, chiropractic care on this group was associated with increased resistance to common childhood diseases. This study was great. It was kids of chiropractors versus non-chiropractic patients. You know, we put our money where our mouth is okay, chiropractic kids versus non-chiropractic kids. None of these kids were vaccinated, by the way. And that's another conversation for another time, and we're not going to go anywhere near it today. Unvaccinated. So, I thought vaccines were supposed to help the immune system. Never underestimate the power of an adjustment. Another research study. Chiropractic adjustments influence the T, the B, the natural killer cells, the antibodies, all of these things improved by chiropractic adjustments. This study was actually, I actually ended up meeting one of the authors a couple of years back, but this was done on HIV-positive subjects. And they found that the 48% increase in your natural killer cells, your CD4 cells, and that was over a 6-month period of time. So, Nate, you've been under care for a long time. You get sick less now?
Yeah, much less.
Yeah.
And as well as I used to take medicine for my Flonase.
Yeah.
So I used to have bad allergies. Also cholesterol pills and high blood pressure.
Yeah.
I'm not on that now.
Yeah. And again, that's not a...
I didn't even know, and it was also interesting. I never really knew. I thought chiropractor care before was just, I was not knowledgeable, which is interesting. I thought it was when you had a real bad problem in your back, like an injury, and then I was at Whole Foods trying to get my good food and stuff like that, and then he came over.
And here I am.
And then I found out about it, and I learned this a lot more.
Yeah. So, you know, and even Nora, you, if you want to talk about your situation with your kids.
Well, I have a testimonial hanging up with everyone else's in the office. I don't know if people have read those yet, but both of my sons have really severe, they've had really severe asthma, where every year from about October until April, they're sick like every 3 weeks, for like 2 weeks. And 1 year, my older son missed 30 days of school during that time period from being sick. Every year that somebody would get pneumonia, somebody would get croup. My youngest had bronchiolitis. They both had bronchitis. I mean, it just went on and on every single winter. They started getting adjusted this past fall. I think they started getting adjusted in October. They had a little cold in November, and that was it for the entire year. Nobody got sick, maybe sniffles a little bit, but there was no people on antibiotics and their inhaler medicine. I can't remember the last time either of them has used their rescue inhaler. I weaned them off all their asthma medication earlier than we usually do because they just had no symptoms. And the most exciting thing out of all of this, it's not 100% confirmed yet, but my youngest has been allergic to nuts and shellfish since he was 2, is when he was diagnosed with that. And he just had his re-exam where they retested him on Monday. It all came back negative.
Yeah.
So,
That's pretty cool. One of my other another situation, kid allergic to everything. You know, a couple months of care. Kid's a lot better, and grocery bill's been cut in half. Mom's happy, kid's happy. So the reason I talk about these things is, you know, it's hard to take what you know about your chiropractic care and apply it to your little ones because it's a world away. In other words, we've all been adjusted, and sometimes we've had to maybe throw the heat at you sometimes, right? But with kids, it's just a finger flick, a little more than a finger flick, not a lot of pressure. Why it comes down to, basically, this study looked at something called serum thiol. It's a DNA repair enzyme. In other words, when your body is healing, this is a byproduct, significantly higher in kids or just patients under long-term chiropractic care. You know, how we age how our children age is a choice. I mean, it makes sense. If I could improve the quality and the quantity of your food throughout the course of your lifetime, there's no doubt you would be healthier. And the same is true. If I could improve the quality and quantity of your air and your water supply throughout the course of your lifetime, there's no doubt you would be healthier. Well, like it or not, our bodies are under constant stress from gravity itself, slips and falls, crashes, all these things will eventually affect the function of the nervous system. So wouldn't it be true that if I can improve the quality and quantity of the nerve supply throughout the course of the lifetime, it's going to make a difference in the life and the health of the child? So that's why we're here today. I know I ran a little late here, and I apologize for that. I'm still going to make myself available for any of you that have questions. I know that maybe there's some that would like the class to be dismissed, but at the very least, I hope you got some good information from this. And thank you so much for all coming tonight. I really appreciate all being here. I hope you got some good information, and I hope it was worthwhile. So thank you very much for your time.